Alright everyone, I hope you guys are ready for some pain because this is one of my least favorite things to talk about, but weirdly enough, it's also one of my favorite things to make a video about. And I'm talking about mistakes, and what I wanted to do today is share with you guys some of the major mistakes that I've made on Grand Cross Global. So either if you're a newer player, that means that you can listen and not make the same mistakes that I did, or if you guys are a more advanced player, what you can do is follow along and let me know out of the mistakes that I made, how many of them that you also made as well. So you can kind of compare what you did to what I did. But I'm going to keep it simple. This is something I could easily spend many videos talking about. I could turn this one alone into a 30-minute video, but instead I'm going to keep it simple. And today's topic is going to be gearing, and it's going to be my top 5 mistakes with gearing up. So let's get right to it, and let's start off here with number 1 on the list. And this is a huge mistake that I've made with a ton of my early units and resources, and a lot of the early sets of gear that I've made, and that is investing too many resources into the center row of gear, which is going to be your gear based off of the defense stats, so your necklace and your earrings, and it's really not the thing that you want to spend the most resources on earlier. If you're working on a more attack-based unit, you want to focus on the bracers and the ring, more so the bracers though. If you're working on a more defensive HP unit, you want to focus on the belt and the rune, but more so the belt. And then the necklace and the earrings are really the things that you want to work on last and spend the least amount of resources on, because you end up getting the smallest boost to your unit from those two. So this is why even on a lot of my units that I use very frequently, you can see here that on my Escanor, I don't even have a UR necklace, and I haven't even made my SSR earrings for Escanor. And I will eventually, absolutely, but the return that you end up getting from those two pieces of gear is very, very small compared to your bottom row and your top row. Now, this doesn't just go for creating the actual gear itself, it also goes for the stats, and I'm talking about anvils. You really don't want to go too crazy re-rolling the defense stat. In fact, I would say for most people, you don't even have to re-roll the necklace and the earrings for a really long time, by the way. You could just stick with whatever stats it gives you. It's not going to make a major difference on your unit. But if you do want to end up re-rolling into defense, just stick with whatever defense roll you get, even if it's really low, for a little while. And that's going to be one of the last things that you really want to work on with your gear. You really want to focus the primary resources when it comes to your anvils on things like your belt, especially for units that really rely on HP, like Escanor. And also, you know, your rune, of course, because that's also HP related. But then your bracelet and your ring. Those are going to be the 4 out of the 6 pieces that you really want to focus on the most. And you spend much less resources on that middle row, which is the necklace and earrings. So eventually get around to it, but don't go too overboard when you first start working out on that. Alright, number 2 is not building enough HP sets and basically completely ignoring the whole HP set overall early on. And even now, I am really having to catch up and build more HP sets. I know my Lilia has one now, actually, with Pierce Rate on the bracelet and the ring because, of course, of her passive, but this is something that you absolutely want to build, especially for your defense-based unit, where the primary purpose of that unit is not something offense-related. Now, Lilia, arguably, you could end up using an attack set. It's just fine for her skill 1, and also because her heal does scale off of attack. But there's a lot of units where they're really going to benefit much, much more so from an HP set compared to an attack set. And you want to really think to yourself, what's the primary purpose of that unit? Is their goal to do damage and to kill things, or is their goal primarily to do something else? And with Lilia, sure, she can still benefit from the attack set, and I think it's still okay if you go with it. That's not really her primary purpose. Her primary purpose is going to be her defensive capabilities and her unique that's going to boost Pierce Rate to your other units, which is effectively going to allow your other units to do damage. So the units that you have in combination with Lilia, like Blue Demon Meliodas, Hauser, or other Pierce units, those are going to be the ones that you want to use the attack set on. So I neglected this for way too long. And another thing too is it's going to boost the combat class on your units by quite a bit as well. So if you want to go overboard and build a lot of HP sets, you are going to boost up the combat class of your teams and your account by quite a bit as well. But definitely not something you want to forget about. Alright, next up here is working on gear that had way too low base stats. What do I mean by that? Well, this is a really big mistake that you definitely want to avoid. And I don't know if I have an example right here. This one is okay. I might go for a little bit higher now, but earlier on, I think it's fine to turn this into, 5-star gear. But it's this roll right here. The 390 through 520. What you absolutely do not want to do is really work on it a whole lot if it's really close to 390, because that's a pretty low base roll, and it's also going to impact your UR roll if you decide to UR that gear. So what you want to do is when you end up farming all of your gear, your attack sets, your HP sets, you obviously want to salvage and get rid of the sets that roll really, really poorly, like this one right here. It's only 411, so that's not good. So I definitely don't want to turn this into 5-star gear. So you could salvage it, or you could put it on your other units if they don't have other equipment actually equipped. But it's the good ones that you really want to take to UR, the good ones that you want to 5-star Awaken. And as a general baseline here, I say top 10% generally to start off is fine. So 390 through 520, I would say anything like above 505 or so is okay. But if you're a perfectionist or you really want to go for it, you can even go for like top 5%, which would mean that even this one that I have right here would not be good enough. I would want to go for like 510, 11, 12 or higher. But if it's close, that's fine. Just make sure that it's not really, really low before you start to work on it, because then you're going to have to spend gems in order to reroll it back to something decent. So, big mistake that I made. Alright, next up here. This is one that I actually recently did, and I kind of wish I stopped myself. This was a weird one because I was kind of making this mistake knowing that I was making this mistake, but I don't know. I kind of lost control a little bit here, and I regret it for sure. And that is hammering stuff too early. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when it comes to your bonus rolls, you've got anvils and you've got hammers, right? Anvils are going to completely re-roll it so they could get any of the 4 stats. So for bracers, you could get attack, pierce, crit chance, or crit damage. It's going to be random. It's going to be a random stat, and it's going to be a random amount between those numbers that you see right there. Hammers are just going to improve the stat that you already have, which is really awesome. They are super powerful. The thing is, though, is that hammers are very, very rare. I know I have a lot of stuff right now, but that's because I'm doing my 500+ million gold on Gear Gacha, and I haven't used any of the stuff from it. But, you know, relatively speaking, the amount of hammers that you get compared to the amount of anvils that you get is roughly like this. You know, you're going to get 10 anvils or so for every 1 hammer that you get, which means that you don't want to go overboard using your hammers knowing how difficult they are to get. And if you roll something like a 1 or 1.5% attack roll, that's definitely not worth using hammers on in order to boost it. You want to try to get it to, I would say, at the very least, like 2% in the middle. And that's the very least. I would even say if you could go for like 2.3, 2.5 before you start to hammer it, that would be great. But definitely nothing below 2%. That's just a big waste of hammers, and you're not going to get enough of them in order to reroll your stats that way. So I threw away way more hammers than I needed to. So, alright. And the very last thing on this list for today is not building Pierce Gear for my Pierce team early enough. I didn't realize how good Pierce Gear was until I tried using it myself, and I just using my attack gear on all my Pierce units, like Demon Meliodas, Hauser, even Green Elihawk. She's a Pierce unit as well. And especially for farming, I mean, having Pierce gear for your units that have a Pierce-related skill, right, like Blue Demon Meliodas here, it is super, super crucial. The difference that you're going to see in the damage between having a Pierce set equipped and not having a Pierce set, specifically on these Pierce-based units, which are Blue Demon Meliodas, Hauser, and Green Elihawk, it really makes them so much better, not only for PvP, but also for farming. If you're using Pierce gear on solid farmers, then you're just going to be able to one-shot pretty much all the farming content, speeding it up a lot, allowing you to farm resources quicker, and allowing you to boost your account quicker. So, you know, if you're thinking to yourself that question, is Pierce gear really worth it? The answer definitely is yes. Don't make the mistake of waiting around too long, not realizing that. So, I wish I built my Pierce gear a little bit earlier on. But anyway, like I said, this is one of those things I could easily spend several videos talking about this or make this into a 30-minute video. I've made so many mistakes, but I wanted to share this with you guys so that you don't make the same mistakes that I do. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and if you did and you want more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. Feel free to toss a quick like as well. It really does mean more than you can imagine, so thank you so much to all of you who decided to do that. And more Grand Cross Global videos should be popping up on the screen right about now, or in the suggested videos to right or below. More guides, tutorials, and fun videos just like this on the channel, over 150 of them, so feel free to check them out. But if not, have a great day everyone, take care. This is Salt of the Salty Guild, signing out.